Well, hi there. It is June 9th, 2019, Journal 74, T+68. 32 more days left, which is pretty exciting uh, from my perspective, at least. We were talking a lot yesterday. I was talking a lot yesterday about about realistic or unrealistic expectations, or managing expectations to be more exact. And I think that that's a critical issue for most of us. Uh, Certainly those of us who are in business, regardless of whether it's a single owner entrepreneur or whether it's a large organization. Managing up expectations is certainly a critical component of the successful business. Uh, and if you remember at the end, I invited listeners to join in the discussion. And I got one message from one of my former clients, one of my favorite former clients, who basically indicated that her expectations were always too high. Paraphrasing, of course, especially um, the expectations she holds for herself, and I think a lot of us uh, are guilty of that. I think that it's an important successful trait, or perhaps a dangerous threat, depending on how you look at that. Uh, and it goes along with what I've always believed, and that is that if you don't manage expectations, um, somebody else will manage them for you. There is no, nature abhors a vacuum, so um, something will drop into that hole, and like a black hole in space, it'll drag you in. Um, so it's something to be cognizant of, and something I think that all of us should be aware of. Um, Consequently, I also believe that it's our responsibility to try and manage those expectations as much as possible, as much as you're able. And sometimes that works for you, sometimes that works against you. If your expectations really are unreasonably high, and there's something that you cannot achieve either physically or um, emotionally or mentally, then you're setting yourself up for failure, and that's not a good thing. Generally, it works against us all too often, and if you set your expectations too low, you're never really quite aware of what it is that you need to do in order to succeed, because you're never really pushing uh, that envelope. You find a comfortable place and then you manage to stay there. And I said for years in all the seminar work that I did that if you're trying to climb the ladder of success, if you find yourself standing still, um, you're really falling backwards. And the way I explained that was, the story of Jacob's ladder. If you remember that story, um, Jacob went to sleep in the desert. He used a rock for a pillow, which probably accounts for at least some of these really odd dreams that he had. And in the dream, he saw angels, and they were moving back and forth on their way to and from heaven. And realistically, if you recognize what that's trying to tell us, I think it is that we can't be standing still. We can't be complacent. We can't become complacent when it comes to expectations of ourselves, or anyone else for that matter. But they have to be realistic. And standing on one rung of the ladder is dangerous, because in many cases it's a matter of just how quickly you're falling behind. But the thing that's really important to take away from the story is it doesn't matter where you are on the ladder. What really matters is whether or not you're moving up or down. So if you're moving up the ladder, even if you're at the bottom, you're in better shape than you're at the top and sliding down. Uh, and I think that has a lot to do with your expectations also, whether you're willing to become stagnant, stale, complacent, or whether performance is something that's really important to you, and it doesn't matter whether it's your own performance or whether it's the performance of those around you, those you care about deeply, and how you're going to manage that, which is not necessarily easy to do. Um, it takes a great deal of empathy and understanding in order to consider the expectations of those around you. I think I mentioned this before, but I may not have. The doctors at City of Hope, my doctors at City of Hope, have done an incredible job of managing expectations. They do that by being really completely honest. They're going to tell you what you have in store for you because they've done this before. It's not the first clinical trial for a stem cell bone marrow transplant. So they know that you're going to have a misplaced sense of security and well-being after you've had the last dose of chemo, the Malfolin, and you're going to have pretty much a 2-day hall pass, as my son calls it, before the effects of that drug kicks in and just stomps the hell out of you. But they're aware of that, and they let you know that. So they do it in a very human kind of way, but they let you know what's coming. And in most cases, they make it sound just a little bit worse than it's going to be. And in almost all cases so far, at least in my experience, they've been very careful to do that very well. And it makes it easier to get through it. It makes it easier to withstand it. So, I think it's important to recognize that and recognize how it works. I also think it's important that that heart, and I don't know how you want to define that, but it's whatever fuel you find deep inside you that drives you forward when everything else is trying to push you back. It's what makes champions in most cases. It's really hard to be a champion without heart. And perhaps an example of this might be our sons, participating in the Alcatraz San Francisco swim with the sharks triathlon, which he did today. And if you were to look at him physically, you might misjudge him. As a matter of fact, chances are you probably would. You wouldn't necessarily recognize the fact that he's done 13 Ironmen, the fact that he's done countless triathlons, the fact that he coaches, that he understands it, that from a scientific standpoint, that he taught himself how to swim, he taught himself how to run properly and efficiently and effectively in order to take top 10 in his age group, which is not an easy feat in water that's ice cold with a current as strong as it is up there. But there are times even when he mismanages his expectations, trying to go further than he can or he should. And that's my opinion, not his. I'm sure that you can get a completely different story from him. But I think you won't accomplish as much as you're capable of accomplishing if you don't push yourself in some instances to those levels. So the question then becomes, can you manage your expectations and expect too much from yourself? Hold those expectations too high when you're dealing with yourself. Certainly can do it when you're dealing with other people. But can you do that with yourself? And the answer is, of course you can. And most of us do. And that probably results in a lot of disappointment. for too many of us. So maybe the issue is that we just need to be more in touch with ourselves. I know that's something that I need to work on. Any comments or questions, gratefully accepted. You know where to find me. Till tomorrow, stay well and take care. Bye-bye.